Hello, everyone. So my name is Gabija, and today I will talk a little bit about what Mangrove is and how market making on Mangrove could help unify DeFi liquidity. So to begin with, Mangrove is essentially an order book-based DEX where liquidity providers are able to post smart contracts as offers. So let's simplify this a little bit, and I will start with a very basic example. So imagine a fruit marketplace where apples and oranges are sold. I come to this marketplace and I promise to sell my 10 apples in exchange for 10 oranges. However, while I wait for my buyer to arrive, I can go to some garden, plant my apples, and grow even more apples in the meantime. When the buyer comes and takes my offer, I have a choice. And at that moment, I can choose either to fulfill this offer and deliver my promise, or I can choose to withdraw. If I choose to withdraw, the taker doesn't get his offer. So let's start speaking in DeFi terms here. Essentially, oranges are what maker wants and what taker is willing to provide in exchange for the apples. The additional yield, remember the apples that I planted in my garden, and the choice is what we call smart offer. So, exactly, how smart offers work on Mangrove. So maker comes to Mangrove and he posts an offer. Essentially, all offers on Mangrove are just promises of liquidity. So liquidity is not locked. Therefore, a maker is able to put this liquidity into work into some other DeFi protocol. A good example of that could be borrow-lend protocols such as Morpho or Aave, and generate yield while waiting for his offer to be taken. Let's say then the taker comes and takes this offer. So remember, maker has a choice. Either he can choose to fulfill his offer or he can choose to withdraw. The choice is what we call last look mechanism, and I will explain this in more details a bit later on in my presentation. But generally, if the maker decides to fulfill his offer, the liquidity is sourced from the DeFi protocol, delivered to the taker, and the order is executed. Here, you might ask, what happens if all makers on Mangrove decide to withdraw? So essentially, when makers post offers on Mangrove, they have to attach a small amount of native tokens, depending on the blockchain, of course, you're operating on, which we call bounty. And this bounty is used to compensate the takers for the gas they spent while taking offers. Additionally, on Mangrove markets, we have what we call keeper bots running, who essentially check all offers that are posted on the markets and clean the book from offers that are bound to fail. Why offers might fail, again, I will explain in more details a bit later on. But to compare this logic with other regular DEXs, either AMM or order book-based DEXs, liquidity there is locked, which means essentially that when makers post their offers on other DEXs, they have to provide and lock in the liquidity at the exact same moment as they post an offer. And here, the most obvious difference between other DEXs and Mangrove is that liquidity is not locked. Hence why we use, instead of TVL, we use the term TVU, which is total value unlocked. And to finalize this part about how Mangrove works, I would like to dig a little bit deeper into smart offers and generally how transactions occur at Mangrove. So when takers take offers, there is a part of smart offer logic execution. And it always starts with my mentioned last look mechanism, which essentially checks whether it's actually beneficial to fulfill an offer. The reason behind not fulfilling an offer could be the market conditions changed, the price changed, and now it's essentially not profitable to even execute an offer. And if the last look detects that it's not profitable, the trade is not executed. If it detects that it's profitable to execute an offer, we move to the second part of the transaction logic, which is liquidity sourcing. So as I mentioned, makers are able to employ their liquidity into some DeFi protocols, and this liquidity then is sourced by the smart offer logic. If the sourcing is successful, the trade is executed. If the sourcing is not successful, the trade is not executed, of course. The reasons behind unsuccessful execution might be that a maker implemented a router to Aave. However, between posting an offer and the offer being taken, he moved his liquidity from Aave to Compound. When the offer is matched, the code doesn't see that, or the code doesn't have a router to Compound, therefore the liquidity cannot be sourced from this protocol. So there are some particularities and specific features that have to be embedded into the smart offers. And this is exactly what I would like to talk about next. What can you actually embed into your smart offers that you post on Mangrove? So I've already mentioned last look mechanism, which essentially gives a maker a choice to fulfill or to withdraw from the offer. I won't go into too much details with all of these examples, but if you have some questions or would like to chat more about them, happy to do so after the presentation. So the example is as follows. User A wants to buy some ETH, and he is matched with user B, who is willing to sell it for 1,000 USDC. Essentially, what user B can embed into his offer logic is to check the price on Uniswap, as an example. If the price is higher there, user B can say no to user A and sell on Uniswap. If it's lower on Uniswap, either user B can decide to perform arbitrage and buy from Uniswap, or he can just sell it to user A. In both of these two cases, doesn't matter what the price on Uniswap is, user B can win. The second feature that I'd like to mention is what we call liquidity amplification. So as I've mentioned before, essentially all offers on Mangrove are just promises of liquidity. And here on the diagram, you have quite a lot of details. But the main idea here is that a maker has 1,000 USDC. He comes to Mangrove, and he can offer or promise this 1,000 USDC on 3, 10, or N markets at the same time. Because offers can have any logic embedded into them, the logic of updating offers can be embedded as well, which means essentially that if one of these offers is taken, other offers can be updated instantly. And one thing maybe to mention that this particular feature could be compared to the leverage features on other dexes. The third feature that I'd like to talk about is multi-liquidity sourcing. So as I've mentioned, makers are able to embed any logic they like into their smart offers, which essentially means that liquidity can be sourced from literally anywhere within DeFi ecosystem. And here we listed just some of the examples that include lend-borrow protocols, such as Aave Compound, liquidity pools, Uniswap or Balancer, active liquidity management protocols, Tetu, Beefy, and yeah, these are just some of the examples of the possibilities. And lastly, I'd like to mention on-chain price sensors. So essentially, makers are able to embed on-chain price sensors into their offers, which essentially means that they don't need any infrastructure to update their offers, and they can execute offers and repost offers instantly with zero latency. Of course, you have to know that you're bound to the overall speed of the blockchain that you're operating on. And now, with All these features that I've mentioned, they opened a very wide design space for very sophisticated strategies. And here at Mangrove, we figured what is a better way to showcase this than introducing simple, easy to understand, yet super powerful strategy. So let me introduce you to Candle. Candle is an automated market making strategy that uses on-chain order flow to repost offers instantly with zero latency. So essentially, Candle posts bids and asks within a predetermined price range, so you can compare it to concentrated liquidity pools in some sense. And if a bid is taken, Candle posts an ask on the other side of the book and vice versa. Essentially, the main goal of the strategy is to buy low, sell high, therefore it makes profit from the spread. And here it can be compared to, let's say, Unify pools. However, the main advantage of Candle is that on Candle, you can adjust your step size, meaning that the price grid can be adjusted according to volatility, and it can be updated anytime. And this strategy will be available to our users via contracts or SDK, meaning that you could take the strategy, it's open source, you can create your own version of it, you can adjust it based up to your preferences, just deploy it and run it. Or there will also be a version available on Mangrove's web application. Now, to finish this part about Mangrove in general, I'd like to talk a little bit about the vision. So we envision Mangrove to be an ecosystem rather than the DEX alone. Because of Mangrove's powerful features and I would say innovative approach to trading in general, there are many opportunities for potential products and innovations. And some of them here, we just listed some of them. I won't go through all of them, but just to mention, a good example could be liquidity bootstrapping mechanism using market making strategies, as well as creating markets for illiquid tokens, such as carbon tokens or NFTs even. And at least in my personal preference, the most interesting one is that any programmable AMM could be replicated on Mangrove, meaning we could replicate Unify logic one-to-one on Mangrove, but add liquidity routing to, let's say, Morpho. This would result in exactly the same yield as on Unify pool, plus the additional yield from lending your assets on Morpho. And as I've said, these are just, a few examples of the possibilities. Now, moving on to market making part. I will try to go over everything very quickly since we don't have much time left. So here I'd like to compare how market making differs between centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and Mangrove. So to summarize very, very briefly, on centralized exchanges, market makers have to actively manage their strategies. There is high infrastructure competition. And of course, you have the centralized management in general, where the market making is available only to whitelisted players. And you have centralized custody of assets, which, as I think we've seen in the past, or I should say even past years, could be a huge problem if an exchange decides to halt withdrawals. With decentralized exchanges, market makers are able to passively manage their strategies with logic deployed on-chain and updates pushed by off-chain bots. Here they do so by screening mempools or engaging in different arbitrage. I think the most obvious or the biggest benefit that was introduced with decentralized exchanges is that market making was democratized in some way, meaning that anyone can deploy a strategy on-chain, which allows for broader participation. Now, moving to the Mangrove part. So on Mangrove, market makers are able to run passive strategy management with zero latency, which means that they don't need any additional infrastructure to run their strategies. And the features that I've mentioned enable opportunities for complex and sophisticated strategies. So you can achieve capital efficiency via liquidity amplification, you can achieve security via last look mechanism that I've mentioned, or you can also embed passive risk management techniques into your smart offers, such as buying options or other correlated assets to, in general, reduce risk exposure. One thing maybe worth mentioning here as well is that Mangrove can route liquidity from all DEXs atomically. And here, essentially what that means that market makers are able to provide liquidity on any DEX at the same time. Therefore, reduces liquidity fragmentation, consolidates pools, and improves the overall market depth. And to summarize everything that I've said, so Mangrove's innovative features allow or enable liquidity providers and market makers in general with greater flexibility for their strategies, with capital efficiency, while at the same time addresses liquidity fragmentation challenges within DeFi ecosystem. So thank you very much. And yeah, as I've said, if you have any questions or would like to chat more, I think we have time now.
We have time for a question, if there's one in the audience, please.
Very interesting protocol. Thank you very much. With liquidity routing, you depend on where you're routing your liquidity from. There could be drastically higher gas cost. That makes smaller swamps not feasible. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I've mentioned, so in general, how it works on Mangrove, maybe we should go back to it. When makers post offers on Mangrove, they can embed any logic they like, essentially, and yes, the liquidity routing can sometimes cost very high gas costs. So what makers have to do, they need to calculate approximately how much offer would require, how much gas would be required for an offer. If the offer is successful, takers pay gas fees on Mangrove. If the offer is not successful, the mentioned bounty is used to compensate the taker. So essentially, yes, if you have some sort of super complex and deep liquidity routing incorporated into your offers, yes, then it could be very high for the takers, for the taker to take your offer. You're correct.
Hey, great presentation. I was just wondering what your revenue model is, and secondly, are you guys here all day? I wouldn't mind a conversation about perhaps integrating.
Yeah, sure. We're here all day, so really happy to chat about potential ideas or products. Yeah, in terms of revenue models, so we are only on the testnet to begin with. We're not live on the mainnet, but generally speaking, it will be fee-based model as on other exchanges. And yeah, the fee, we haven't decided on it yet, to be completely open and honest. But yeah, it will be fee-based model.
Great. Cool. Thank you so much for rushing through that and for the technical.